What is going on, gentlemen of the league? It is time. Power rankings coming at you post week one, coming at you with all of the unbridled enthusiasm and youthful exuberance that I can bring to you today. Now, I want to preface this power ranking with a couple of points, okay? Number one, I'm not just completely throwing out the previous rankings, okay? I'm taking some rosters are going to make serious changes, some rosters aren't, but I'm not taking number 1 through 5 and putting them down at the very bottom after one game. I still think there's potential there. Hey, listen, bad weeks happen. Just because they happen in week one doesn't mean it's going to completely tank your entire ranking, but there were some big movers this week, so stay tuned to find out who those people are. Additionally, as if that wasn't exciting news enough, we have even more exciting news, maybe. I don't know. For those of you who don't know, may not have heard, I am this week making some league bonus content, okay? This is never before seen. Nobody's ever done this before. I'm the first one that's ever made bonus content for you guys. This content is going to be a video/rant about Trey Lance and why I think that a lot of you are just panicking way too much about Trey. Not going to get into details. That link is going to be in the description. So if you missed the old days at Liberty of hearing me rant about the 49ers, well, look no further. You get to relive those glory days once again. With that being said, let's get into this week's power rankings now.
Look at this, using the power of video editing, not teleportation. We are here right now to discuss this. What is this, you may ask? That is a big steaming dumpster, and we are here for our first annual dumpster team of the week, ladies and gentlemen. That's right, each week, our number 14 team will have to look at this dumpster and realize that that is the closest real-world representation of their shitty roster that we currently have on offer. Now, you might be asking, who is going to have the honor of receiving the first Dumpster of the Week award? Drum roll, please. Dumpster of the Week goes to, that's right, Pablo and the Path of the Righteous Man. Pablo, I was low on your roster initially, and I'm even lower on it now that you completely peed down your leg like a nervous 6-year-old getting ready to go in the pool for the first time. Okay, this was a train wreck. Your running backs look bad. Your receivers kind of looked okay. Amari Cooper, a disaster play at flex, just like I predicted. Please, for the love of God, play Michael Thomas. Do not play Amari Cooper anymore. That's the only thing that can save your team. That's all I got to say. This thing stinks. I'm going to keep it short and sweet. Peace.
All right, going now to the number 13 spot in our rankings. Here we go. Drum roll, please. John Gruden at gmail.com. Now listen, Lester, okay, it's not your fault, okay? Don't throw something through your computer right now. I'm not blaming you, okay? The reason that you're down here, frankly, is that you just got decimated this week by 2 critical injuries, okay? Dak Prescott, donezo for the next possibly 8 weeks, according to some sources. Now they're trying to pivot and say he's going to come back sooner. You might have had to drop Dak anyway with how bad he was looking, at least drop him to the bench. And then, in my opinion, worse, Eli Mitchell. Yeah, you might have wanted to pick up Jeff Wilson Jr. Somebody was smart enough to do that. Can't remember who that was. But yeah, you are just in trouble with Mitchell and Prescott both hurt. You got to kind of scramble now. Good news is Waddle looked decent on your bench, but you may be struggling with Miles Sanders at RB2 this year, and that's why, in addition to the fact that Thielen didn't do much, I had to put you down here after that tough week you had. I wasn't devastated by your roster. If those injuries don't happen, you probably bump up a couple spots in these rankings. But Lester, I'm sorry, I just can't do it, okay? At least you're not in the basement, though, like actual Lester. Rip Foxes. All right, that's going to do it for number 13. Now we're moving on to number 12. All right, ladies and gentlemen, number 12 is going to go to Scoreless in Seattle, Chris Hasenheier. Now, this may shock you because he was a winner this week, but this effort just did not look good for Scoreless in Seattle. Lots of red flags all over the place here in this one, folks. And let's take a look at a couple key points for this team. Devin Singletary and Chase Edmonds, the two biggest questions we had about this roster in the last Power Rankings video. Neither one of those guys looked very solid at all. You add in the fact that Keenan Allen, goes down with an injury. Your roster is looking extremely thin. Melvin Gordon on your bench didn't look good. He had a chance maybe to separate himself, and then he goes down and fumbles. Could have had a touchdown there, made itself look good. You got very lucky this week. Your competition was just a complete disaster, as we know, and we'll get to that fairly soon. But a lot of concerning things. I think Rodgers does get better, but Marquise Brown only caught 4 passes with DeAndre Hopkins out. He got lucky, he got a touchdown, but lots of red flags all over the place on this roster. I'm not sold, Chris. We're going to need to see some improvement before we get you back up into that mid-tier of the rankings. Now, moving on to number 11 on the list. All right, guys, let's take a look at our number 11 team. It pains me to say this, but we've got Best Team Revenge Tour here with yours truly. The Revenge Tour did not get off to a great start, guys. Just a bad week all around. You know, listen, some of you guys may have seen this coming. You know, yeah, my running backs were a disaster this week, okay? But I am not fretting. I am actually glad that this happened because now I have the opportunity to put Darrell Henderson and Jeff Wilson Jr. into my lineup, and I know with confidence that I have 2 solid running backs. As long as T. Higgins stays healthy and doesn't get injured in this matchup like he did in this one, potentially could have cost me the victory there. I think there's a lot of positives to take away. Kyle Pitts is not going to get 2.9 points very often this season. He's going to definitely have brighter days ahead. Hey, it's a weird week 1, but I had to bust myself down in the rankings. It was not a good showing by my team in any way. Not even my kicker did anything. So other than Justin Jefferson, who, you know, if you guys thought I was crazy for taking him, maybe you guys understand kind of what I was thinking there. But anytime you lose to Boston, who I just absolutely roasted last week in the rankings, I should have known that everything would fall apart for me and that I would lose. But hey, like I said, all is not lost with Jeff Wilson Jr. and Darrell Henderson Jr. at the running back spots. Couple of cast-offs, couple of guys that weren't expected to do much. Hey, maybe they become great players and get me over the hump. Now that that's all been gone through, we'll go ahead and transition to number 10 on the list. We're not going to have to go far on this one. All right, gentlemen, coming in at number 10 in the power rankings, not going to have to go far at all. It was my opponent, Gimme More, with Boston Monroe. Now, of course, Boston is coming up from the cellar of these rankings. He avoided being the inaugural dumpster team winner. That being said, I'm still not really in love with this roster. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, kind of a fluky multi-touchdown game. Not seeing that happening very much. You started Packers defense. I think that's a very questionable coaching decision by you. Not the only questionable coaching decision I've seen recently. Nathaniel Hackett. All right, let's move on from that. Kirk actually was the surprise of your team for me. Looked great in Jacksonville with a solid flex performance for you. But I still have concerns about your roster. I don't think it's very deep. James Robinson might actually save you, though, and kind of elevate you up to being a lot better. But Boston, you are the darling of the ESPN algorithm, so maybe that mysticism will carry you to a remarkable season, but I haven't seen enough evidence with kind of a mediocre performance by your team to really elevate you very high in these power rankings. That being said, let's get inside the top 10. Let's look at our number 9 team on the ranking. All right, ladies and gentlemen, coming in at number 9 was another team that I absolutely blasted in the original power rankings post-draft. A team that has moved up a little bit on this list. Begrudgingly, that would be the Ethiopian Desert Walkers. Yes, the Desert Walkers. Okay, Gabo, so let's talk a little bit about this. I know you were probably just expecting the pogo stick up on the rankings. My team did so good, I got robbed. I think it's frankly hilarious that not only did Nathaniel Hackett's disaster play call cost the Broncos a win against Seattle, but very well could have cost you your fantasy matchup with Nibs. I'm sure Nibs was watching the game, hanging on for dear life, sure that he was going to lose, and then you come up 2 yards short. Very, very brutal. But let's take a look deeper into why I didn't move you up very high in the rankings. Okay, let's take a look. First of all, your bench. Nobody on your bench really did anything except for Julio Jones, and he even still had just kind of a mediocre performance. George Pickens was just completely absent from the Pittsburgh Steelers effort this week. Jalen Tolbert, everybody on the Cowboys offense looked like shit. Tolbert, I don't even know if they tried to throw him a pass. I'm not sure. And Christian Watson, he actually could have been an explosive player. Unfortunately, he got a little bit nervous there. Okay, it's happened to everybody. You know, sometimes the ball just goes right through your hands. I'm sure that you know about that as well, being a receiver yourself. But let's take a look, speaking of receivers, at a couple of real bad signs for your team. Hunter Renfrow just really looks like he's not going to be much of a factor. Didn't get a lot of looks here, and I'm pulling the stat up. Yeah, didn't get targeted too much, didn't really have a great day. You know, only 3 catches. Not exactly what you're looking for from Renfrow. Not going to get the kind of touchdowns that he was going to have last year. Waller did pretty well, solid performance. And Tyler Lockett, I mean, it's just going to be a long year for you with Tyler Lockett. I'm not sure why you picked him. Not a great decision there. Couple of good points, okay, as well that I made. Nick Chubb. On the surface, you look at it, you go, oh, 14.8 fantasy points. That's really great. Yeah, unfortunately, the point that I made when I analyzed this proved out to be very true. Kareem Hunt snipes 2 touchdowns away from Chubb, takes away what could have been a great fantasy game, relegates it to just an okay one. And when you add in the fact that Chubb didn't really do anything in the receiving game, it's just a little bit concerning to me here with Nick Chubb. If that's going to be about the best of the Browns offense, which we think it is, given that they're playing a weaker opponent and it's week 1, I could see Chubb not really replicating this effort. Javonte, I will say, looked great. The Seahawks were very, very hard-pressed to make any tackles on him, and if he just hangs onto the ball, he easily could have had 20 points this week. The real kicker here, pun intended, is that you got 18 points from your kicker. Okay, this is not something that's sustainable. This is a fake 106.1 point performance by your team, especially when we consider that you did not draft Mr. Koo because you thought he was a great kicker. It was just your 7-year-old brain thinking that his name was Ho, and then that's pretty funny. So I'm not giving you credit there. I'm not bumping you up way high in the power rankings. I need to see more consistency from somebody other than your kicker before I do that. Now, with that being said, let's go and move on to a team that was not a riser, but rather was a pretty significant faller in this week's rankings. Let's take a look. All right, gentlemen, coming in at number 8, we have Time to Cook, Cam Lautenschlager, changing his name to Time to Cook, which is eerily similar to Nathaniel Hackett's fantasy team name, Time to Kick. There's a little joke for you. All right, let's take a look at this roster. Obviously, we have some concerns here with this team. A team that I gave you the benefit of the doubt, Cam. And to be fair, you drafted 2 guys on your bench who could be excellent sleepers, so I give you a little credit there. But we see an immediate concern that I brought up in my last video when you only have Trey Lance as your quarterback, okay? You see the game, you tune into your pregame coverage, you know, like maybe you do on a Sunday morning, and you see that Soldier Field is a complete morass out there with terrain that looks eerily similar to the Somme in 1916, and you say, okay, let me get my other quarterback because this is not going to be a good day to throw the football. Well, unfortunately, you didn't have that option, and you suffered with a single-digit quarterback performance. Not that you were the only one. That was kind of a theme this weekend, actually. But it just proves, you know, it's not a great idea to have Trey as your only quarterback. I've said that before, and I'll continue to hammer home that point. Yes, you did get a win this week, Cam. But, of course, just as your typical storyline, you come up against some pretty weak opposition. You were fortunate enough to be playing the dumpster team, and I'm going to continue to hammer home that dumpster point on you, Pablo, because, hey, that's what I do here, all right? But getting back on point, Kareem Hunt just goes off like a legend with 21 points, but really not a lot of other positives. Aaron Jones had half the points that A.J. Dillon had, which is not a great sign, although I think that's going to get better when the Packers' receiving game gets off the ground, which I think it's going to next week. Dalvin Cook had kind of a slow week. I think that's going to pick up. Mike Williams, this looks very similar to last year where he's just really inconsistent and has extremely low floor weeks that are really going to kill you, especially when he's your wide receiver one. Deontay Johnson is good. Came up with a lot of plays, of course, but the Steelers only got 13 first downs. They really didn't look great on offense. Something to keep an eye on, Dalton Schultz. He may suffer with the Cooper Rush era now beginning, since, of course, in this league, everything is an era, as we've already anticipated. So there are some roster concerns. I do think that you really struck gold, especially with Jahan Dotson, who looked really good for the Washington Commanders, a rookie guy that's been, not getting as much hype as some of these other rookies, but a guy that we probably should have been looking at a little bit closer. So I give you credit there, Cam. You did well down on the roster. It's not like you fell too much. I think you only dropped, 3 spots. But hey, hopefully things will pick up, and we'll make sure that we keep this relatively mild so that you don't get too upset. All right? Just kidding, Cam. All right, let's move on to number 7. All right, gentlemen, moving on to number 7. This one hurts. Okay, I went out there and I went to bat for this roster. Okay, I put it at the tippy top, baby, top of the pops, and then it just completely crumbles. All right, this is going to be our biggest faller of the week, all the way down from number 1 to number 7. Sorry, Miss Jackson. If this continues for one more week, you're going to be down in the bottom 4 probably. That was just an incredibly bad loss. That was ugly. And that wasn't just regular ugly. That was Miss Trunchbull from Matilda ugly, okay? Now, Nate, I want to get real with you, okay? If you just took a dive this week to make me look bad because I was talking about how maybe a fantasy football ring would be more important than your wedding ring, okay, I was just kidding, Nate. You didn't need to tank your matchup and make me look like an asshole just because I said that, okay? I was just kidding. And if Morgan was offended, tell her I'm sorry. It's just a joke. Okay, no need to go Will Smith on me and go nuclear and bench A.J. Dillon for Devontae Smith because, I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt. There's no way you could have made that terrible decision just because you thought it was the right call. I hope. Nate, please tell me that that's not what happened. Nate, you got to play A.J. Dillon. Everybody's been hyping up Dillon. You got to play him, especially now that the Packers clearly are trying to run the ball down people's throats. You have 2 good running backs. Get Dillon in your lineup. Cam Akers, good God, that was awful. He did not do anything. You had 2 goose eggs. That is hard to do. So you really got to reevaluate a lot of stuff. I think Derrick Henry's going to get better. I didn't completely blast you because Henry's going to get better. Mike Evans is going to continue to have a good year. And once you put Dillon in your lineup, I think things are going to go better for you. But Nate, come on, man. You didn't need to take out your anger about that comment on me by tanking your matchup against Chris. All you had to do is play A.J. Dillon. You would have won easily. Nate, I hope everything's cool, okay? Just don't get too upset, all right? Now, moving on to our number 6 team, getting into the top half here. Things are starting to get real. All right, guys, coming in at number 6, top half of the league, things getting real. It is Big Beat Manifesto. Still don't know what that team name means? Still don't want to know. All right, let's take a look at why you just rose up the rankings after I kind of blasted you a little bit. Wasn't too bad, but hey, you proved me wrong. Let's take a look, right? Tom Brady, huge room for improvement. It's kind of an outlier game for him. Easily could add a couple more touchdowns if Micah Parsons hadn't just kind of wrecked him a little bit in the red zone there a couple drives. Joe Mixon. Loved Joe Mixon when you took him. I think that's a great pick. Stephon Diggs, nothing needs to be said more. Key thing about your week this week was really the bottom of your lineup where you have Jarvis Landry completely just gelling with my guy, Jameis Winston. catching lots of passes, big plays. He got down the field a little bit. Not something we've seen for Landry from a few years, but hey, with Jameis out there uncorking the crab legs, he is looking great. And then you got Bills D. You said, fuck the matchup. I don't give a shit about the Rams. I'm putting Bills D in there because I'm buying in on the Bills hype. They paid you back, and then some 19 points from your D, one of the better D performances. Might have been the best D performance in this league this week. Still have concerns about a couple areas. DK Metcalf fumbles the ball, doesn't really get a lot of downfield targets, doesn't get in the end zone. Unfortunately, Colby Parkinson looks like he may be the new featured weapon in the Seattle offense. Stay tuned for that. All aboard the Colby Parkinson hype train, baby. Great hair, by the way. Definitely better hair than DK's, frankly, I think, stupid hair dye job that he's got. Another concern, Josh Jacobs. Again, this really underscores my point. Let's take a look at the stat line a little bit closer. 10 carries for 57 yards. Excellent efficiency. 1 catch for 16 yards. Doesn't get a touchdown. Only gets 11 touches, and he's just buried down there at 7.8 points. That is just brutal. He deserved way more than that. He deserved better. But this is what I'm saying with McDaniels. They get behind. They like to use this committee running style. And Jacobs, who is a complete stud, gets left out of all the fun. And I feel for you, man. But that was the story there with Jacobs. Overall, still a great week for you. And with Brady not really doing great, there's still maybe even some room for improvement. So congratulations, Brendan. And if Kiera's around, make sure you tell her I said hi, okay? All right, we are here now in the top 5 of our power rankings. Sean Bates, and all I need is coffee and Jesus. Sean, I'm going to speak directly to you here in case you're watching. I'm very concerned for your safety and for your well-being. It has been almost 24 hours since the Monday Night Football game ended, and I have yet to receive any ridiculous trade offers from you. And I'm very concerned that you may have been abducted or otherwise harmed. Please text somebody. Please let somebody know that you're okay if you haven't already, because I expected, frankly, to be flooded by 5 to 6 ridiculous, utterly disastrous trade offers, and I haven't even gotten one yet. Sean, if you're listening, please let somebody know you're okay. I'm very concerned. Now, just in case you are okay and you are listening, let's get into something a little bit more positive, which is your team, okay? You took an L this week, but I give you credit because when you drafted, I said this was your best draft ever, and you really, unlike Nate Solly, you paid my faith back with a great performance. Kyler Murray, real life performance, but solid fantasy start. James Conner gets in the end zone again. Get used to that. It seems like they're just going to continue to pound the rock down there. Austin Eckler, kind of a down week. He didn't run the ball that much. Keep an eye on that. Really a lot of Sony Michel for whatever reason. Michael Pittman Jr., though, really the catalyst of that Colts comeback. Looked great in the second half. Gabe Davis, who I was a little bit hesitant about, he got you some points. He looks like he's going to be fine scoring touchdowns. Where you kind of lost this one down near your end of your lineup, you just didn't get enough, and frankly, Jake just had a ridiculous week. But overall, I'm just happy with the way your team looks right now, and that's why I've got them high up in the rankings. So, Sean, congratulations. But, hey, like I said, please let somebody know you're safe. If I don't receive a ridiculous trade offer from you tomorrow, I actually will probably just assume that you're dead. All right, moving on to number 4 in our rankings. We have the first team, I believe, to have not changed at all, and that is Super 8 with JoJo Cunningham. JoJo, man, you got a little bit screwed there. A little bit screwed. I thought you had it. Penny racked up a lot of yards early. It just looked like you were going to get over the hump and you were going to get that week 1 win. And then he just kind of disappeared from the game there at the end a little bit. Really frustrating, really brutal. You lost here by just a couple of yards. Less, 1.1 points or 11 yards to be specific. Just kind of brutal. I was right about Mahomes. He was just terrific. Najee Harris, if he doesn't go out, I think you have it just based on that. A.J. Brown, man, he looked good. Super, super high-quality receiver that you have there. I think Allen Robinson will probably do better than 1.7. I'm not as worried. He got open a lot, and Stafford kind of fucking blew it a little bit with finding him. on some of those open routes where he definitely could have had a lot more points. Travis Kelce, clear tight end one, like I mentioned. The real concerning thing, and this is something I talked about in my post-draft power rankings with Tony Pollard, okay? I like Tony Pollard, but how many times did Dallas use him? You look at his stats, he had 6 carries for 8 yards and 2 catches for 14, so he gets 8 touches. Their lines doesn't look good at all. They got manhandled by the Buccaneers D-line. And Pollard just really suffers, and they're not going to give him a lot of work. They only threw 2 passes his way for 14 yards. Just brutal there. You got a good performance out of Chargers D, thanks to Derek Carr's misfortune this week, but you just barely blew it. But hey, I'm not docking you at all in the rankings. I still think this roster is good. You just maybe need to make a trade to get maybe a little bit of a running back upgrade, or look to the waiver wire for someone that's going to give you a little bit more juice there. But I like where you're at, JoJo. Worst case scenario, you're a pretty good running back. Maybe you just add yourself to your own team. But anyway, good job, JoJo. Really proud of you. You are another guy that made me look good this week, so thank you for that. Don't have to go very far as we look at our number 3 team in the matchup, Character Concerns FC. Now, I still have some concerns, which I'll get to in a second, but I want to say congratulations. This was my big swing team in my power rankings. And a lot of my predictions kind of ironically came true about your team. Etienne and Montgomery didn't really do much. David Montgomery just looked very, very bad, besides maybe one play that I can think of where he actually looked decent. That was a miserable performance by him. Etienne just not doing well. I think James Robinson kind of took the wind out of his sails a little bit, scores a couple of touchdowns. They're going to use him around the goal line. But Jamar Chase, stud. You may have gotten a little bit of a boost there because T. Higgins went down. It was just all Chase all the time from there on out. Tyreek Hill, solid. The guy I doubted, okay, the veteran that I said, hey, there's no way he can do this again. Well, fuck me, I guess, because he's doing it again. Cordero Patterson, 21.1 points, 22 carries, just getting fed out there. And he made the most of it, looking very good in a narrow Falcons loss where they did put up a lot of points and they put up a big fight, more than people expected. You scraped by. You got a little bit lucky that, JoJo's team had some misfortune. But hey, your Mike Tyson punches, they landed, my friend. Congratulations on a great week. There's going to be better things to come, I think, for your team in the future, my friend. You're back. All right, moving on to the number 2, where it's getting very serious. A guy that I said, hey, I'm going to give this guy a lot of credit because he's always relevant, and that is Brandon Niblock here. What's under my towel? I don't know what that team name is about, but I like it better than the Bills knew. The Bills, they ain't know. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about your team. You got a very, very narrow win. I'm sure you were just thrilled. Perhaps you got a little too excited. I mean, maybe you just completely lost your shit there at your new pad when you realized that the dumbass Broncos were not going to try and throw another Russell Wilson pass. Why use the guy that you paid $46 million a year for when you can just put Brandon McManus out there to kick an insanely long field goal? I mean, it's not like 5-yard passes happen all the time. So you were the benefactor not only with the Seahawks winning, but also in your fantasy game based on good old Nate Hackett. You might want to send him a fruit basket. I know you got the money. All right, let's take a look at your roster. Jalen Hurts, just like I predicted, did very well. DeAndre Swift, the dump-off king, is at it again. How many dump-offs did he get this time? Just gets 3 catches for 31 yards to go along with 144 yards rushing and the touchdown. The guy does everything. Tony Gibson looks good. CeeDee Lamb. Now, this is where the concerning bit gets with Dak's injury. Okay, he didn't look good when Dak was in there. I still think he could be productive, but maybe not a number 1 receiver anymore. Keep an eye out there for CeeDee Lamb. Cortland Sutton, I think he looked pretty good. Didn't have a huge game to show for it, but he scored pretty well. Freiermuth, exactly what I envisioned. Dump-offs to Freiermuth constantly from Mitch Trubisky. The guy, they didn't trust him to do anything in that game once they got a lead. He was throwing short passes to Freiermuth. Then he has that one scramble and fires it over the middle, and Big Pat is right there to snag one. Breece Hall didn't look great. Okay, Breece kind of got upstaged a little bit in his NFL debut. He only gets 6 carries, but he does get 6 receptions. When you look at Breece, you look at his numbers, right? Probably would have looked a little bit better if he had not fumbled the football. Classic rookie move right there. So you know that's going to happen with Breece. But I like your team. Drake London had an effective game. Ayuk will probably do better when it's not raining. His stats should have looked better. He had a long reception that was called back for a completely bogus penalty. So definitely, even though the stats didn't look great, it was a rainstorm and he got screwed by the officials. I like the direction of this team. You didn't have an explosive week this week, but you did well enough. I can see how this is going to turn out with you, where I think it's going to work just fine. And I'm still a believer in your team. Now, hopefully you've used process by elimination, because we got number 1 coming up next. Here we go. It's number 1. It's top of the pops, and we have Double D Cup, the top scorer, the top dog, a guy who was high in my rankings, in the post-draft rankings. I really loved his draft, and he proved me very, very right there with his performance. Now, let's get into it. Joe Burrow here, after 5 turnovers, still manages to put up a pretty effective fantasy football start. When he's not doing the 5 turnovers, I think he's going to be fine for you. It's not going to happen every week. Saquon, this is the storyline that everybody in the league is talking about fantasy-wise. You're the lucky guy that gets Saquon, and he is back. I mean, I don't know how much of that game you all watched. He is back. He is just as explosive as he was as a rookie. That guy is a freak show, and he absolutely dominated the Titans defense that is still pretty good. And then, you got a little bit unlucky with some injuries, so you said, let's go to Kenny Gainwell here, and Kenny Gainwell gets it done for you with the touchdown for the Eagles. Not something I'd be relying on too much, but hey, with Dobbins out, you got to get points from somewhere. Kenny Gainwell, a good option for you. Cooper Kupp, got him at the number 7 pick. That might end up being a really big steal if some of these guys, these running backs that get drafted, don't do well. Terry McLaurin doesn't catch a lot of passes, but you see why it's so nice to have McLaurin. He could score on any play, gets loose, makes a big play, and all of a sudden you got yourself a real nice week. Ironically, got 0 from your tight end. That whole Bears game and 49ers game, I would throw out most of the fantasy fallout from that game. Nobody was doing anything on that field. We'll see what they do next week. Dolphins D made the Patriots look like a bunch of jackasses out there, so you got good points in them. I really liked this roster. I was very high on it. I think I had you number 3. Confirmation that we'll be coming out with that, and I'll post the changes as well onto the video. But man alive, you absolutely proved me right. You're the number 1 team. Congratulations, Jake. And congratulations to all of our winners this week. Hey, at the end of the day, as fun as these power rankings are, it doesn't matter how you get it done. It just matters that you get a W in the win column. And hope you guys enjoyed the rankings. If you want to watch that Trey Lance video, the video will be in the description. The link will be there, and you can watch me rant for about 15 minutes about how I don't think that Trey Lance is someone that we can just call a bust after 3 NFL starts. All right, I will catch you guys next week. Sean, if you're out there, please, if you want to send me a ridiculous trade offer to let me know, that works too. The more ridiculous the trade offer is, the more likely that I'll know that it's you and not an imposter. So just keep that in mind. All right, I'll see you guys next week. Great to be doing this. Best of luck, everyone.